What is 5G? I'll do you one better. Where is 5G? I'll do you one even better. Why is 5G? It seems to be the thing that every carrier and every nerd is super excited about, I guess, until 6G ships, whenever that is. But I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to find out what the big deal was. Is it going to change everything? I mean, that was the promise of LTE, and it kind of, sort of did. I mean, we can stream media like nobody's business, and we have all sorts of apps from Lyft to YouTube Live that we can take with us all the time now. So what's next? To find out, I invited my colleague, Daniel Bader, executive editor of Android Central, in to talk all about it. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I want to know more about 5G. I mean, there's so much hype. People are so excited for it. What is it?
Yeah, so 5G is this very simple name for a lot of different technology. The main tenet here is that it uses something called millimeter wave spectrum, which is super high frequency spectrum that doesn't travel very far. But because it doesn't travel, it can carry a lot of data. And when you can do that, you have the ability to make plans truly unlimited on your phone. You can have millions of different bits and bobs talking to each other at once because they're not going to run out of bandwidth. And the technology is much more intelligent, so it can weave these signals around walls. It can use windows that reflect signals to bounce them through the city to make them hit your phone without losing any of the important data.
So I have to ask you this, because we all knew what 3G was, and then we all sort of thought we knew what 4G was, but the US carriers primarily began to lie about it. They just said they had 4G when it wasn't LTE yet. So is 5G real, or is it another sort of marketing name?
5G has two separate stages of rollout, and the one that's coming is fake 5G, in the sense that it relies almost entirely on 4G LTE for all of the hard stuff, for all of the IMS, for all of the making phone calls, for all of the fallback. The first generation of 5G, called 5G New Radio, it'll just send data over the air. It will not do anything else. Every phone call made, anything that uses sort of legacy equipment, that will all be using LTE. And what's interesting about that is that these phones and all the technologies that rely on 5G, they'll have to have simultaneous connections with both LTE and 5G at the same time, because the actual networks will not function without LTE for the foreseeable future.
So then what's a real, like, what if we're just expecting this? Like, I know there was the HTC Thunderbolt with LTE that would drain in about an hour, and then we got like the iPhone 5 years later. What's a realistic timeline for consumers actually getting real 5G devices?
Yeah, so next year, 2019, we will see 5G devices, and that's because Qualcomm, the company that has millions of dollars, billions of dollars invested in 5G, and it has built a chip called the X50 that will, it's a system on a chip. It has a Snapdragon processor, it has an Adreno GPU, and it has this 5G modem that will plug into phones as early as June of 2019. And we've even seen a demo of this in a Motorola product. It's a modular add-on for the Moto Z line that will give these Moto Z phones 5G connectivity using that X50 modem. The thing is, we don't really know battery consumption at this point. We don't really know a lot of the downfalls, the downsides of what this can offer. And we also know that the earliest version of 5G is going to be a lot like current day 4G. It'll just be a little bit faster.
And do we know, we have a sense of carrier rollout? Because with LTE, it was almost like you would be sitting there waiting for your city to join the list.
Yeah, so Verizon is actually saying 4 cities in 2018 will launch 5G service, but they're using it for home broadband, for people who don't currently have access to high-speed wired internet like fiber or cable. They're actually replacing their home internet with 5G. That makes sense because it's stationary. Cellular, mobile 5G will take a little bit longer. We're thinking early next year. AT&T is rolling out 5G in 9 cities in 2018, and they'll expand that. T-Mobile and Sprint, which they are hoping to merge, they'll launch 5G later on in 2019. But we're also not sure exactly what the rollout will look like, right? The early adopters are going to be the ones to do the speed tests and try to make the claim that 5G is worth the early investment. But really, at this point, it's just going to be about speed. It's not necessarily about capacity, especially since millimeter wave, as I said, is really, really finicky, and you need a lot of towers, a lot of repeaters in order to get those signals reliably.
So is this also, I mean, they made so many promises. They thought that LTE would let them basically replace cable in everybody's house. You would just have an LTE stream, and that never panned out. Do you think that this will be robust enough and fast enough that it will start to replace wired infrastructure?
I do. So 5G was built with the mistakes of 4G in mind. The realistic thing here is that carriers are not going to be capacity restrained. They're really not going to be technology restrained. 5G is very easy to scale, much more so than 4G. The reality here is that they need to make business models out of this, which means that they really need to figure out, okay, we have to make a compelling reason for people to upgrade to 5G products, and they have to figure out, especially in this world of no net neutrality, how can we use these different packages available to make this rollout compelling.
So you mentioned net neutrality. There's also a lot of politics that goes on with this stuff. For example, Qualcomm owned CDMA. They tried to own LTE. They're probably going to want to own 5G. They've had lawsuits with different countries, with Apple famously. Also, the US government and China have had a lot of disagreements about whether the big Chinese manufacturers like Huawei can release infrastructure components into the US market. Is this going to be a tortured birth, or do you think they'll sort of put all their collective interests together to get this out faster and better?
Oh, no, this is not at all a collective interest. This is not an altruistic plan to make the world more connected. I mean, if that was the case, then 4G LTE would be ubiquitous in developing markets. It would be cheap in our country of Canada. These are problems that we see all over the world manifesting in different ways. 5G is not going to solve the connectivity problems as long as corporations have a vested interest in appeasing shareholders before their customers. But at the same time, the realities are that 5G just offers so much more bandwidth. It just offers this ability to scale in ways from small cells that have to have, enormous capacities but need to have repeaters every 500 feet, all the way to these long distance rural rollouts of 5G that right now don't offer users as much bandwidth as they require to replace home internet. That will soon change with lower spectrum 5G in the 600 to 700 megahertz range. And then we see rollouts for products that have nothing to do with consumer technology, right? 5G is touted as being able to change the world through making industry more efficient, pulp and paper, or logging, oil and gas. These are kinds of industries that are poised to be uprooted by 5G. I think the most easy example to talk about is autonomous cars, because connected cars are able to communicate with other vehicles on the road, with the infrastructure itself, and potentially make things a little bit safer.
With the advent of LTE, we couldn't really see forward. We knew that it would give us new opportunities, new technologies. We couldn't really see them, but over time we got Lyft and we got Uber and we got streaming live on Instagram or on Twitter or on Meerkat or on, I guess, every Facebook. Everyone went live. And we could stay connected in more and better ways, and we could broadcast in more and better ways. And just the logistics, from everything from deliveries to drone, I mean, everything benefited from LTE. Do we have any idea? I know you already mentioned a lot of the industrial uses, but do we have any idea as consumers where 5G could take us?
I don't think people need anything different right now. And I think the startup founders, the ones that built Uber, the ones that built Instagram, they were able to, they got the 4G LTE first, or at least some of them did, right? They got the taste of high-speed data, and then they worked their businesses around it. The first couple of years, it's going to be pretty directed, right? You're only going to have a few cities with a few pockets that really benefit from 5G. I think it'll disproportionately improve signals in big cities, right? New York, San Francisco, LA. Those are places that have bogged down networks. These are problems that are still happening today. And I think that, when I go to New York and I order an Uber and it takes me forever just to find a signal because I'm on 5th Avenue at 33rd Street, this is a problem. And this is still something that carriers need to solve. So we're going to see 5G improve the things that 4G can't quite do just yet. And then we're going to see new use cases. I think live video, I think VR, real-time VR collaboration, that makes sense. I think AR, the fact that we may see AR become a real-time tool that people can share when you're not even in the same room. These are the kinds of things that 5G will enable in the short term.
And I'm sure everyone from YouTube to Netflix is just salivating at the idea that people can finally have almost unlimited mobile access to their service.
Yeah, especially since right now when you're consuming video on over the air on any of the 4 US networks, you're being downscaled to 480p and you have to pay extra to get it just up to 720 or 1080. That doesn't even, that's not going to be a concern with 5G.
And when we're all walking around with our glasses and earpieces and are basically human cyborgs, Bader would be very
oh yeah, no, these are next generation AR glasses right now. I can see into your soul, Renee.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to find out more about this stuff, I have one place that you can go, and that's Brilliant. If you're inspired to learn, but you don't know where to start, if you want to find out more about everything from compression to algorithms to logic to how all of this stuff works, but you don't know how, don't worry about it. A good place to learn about the building blocks of all of this stuff is Brilliant. They have a bunch of courses teaching you all the fundamentals of computer science for everybody who's new to the field. Each course is interactive and breaks up complicated concepts into bite-sized chunks to make sure you actually absorb the information. It's a strategy I wish they used in school when I was there. Maybe I would have stayed there. Just go to brilliant.org/vector. Thank you so much, Brilliant. So that's 5G. Are you as excited about it as everyone else seems to be? Are you more trepidatious like I am? Do you think it will result in miraculous, nigh magical new apps and services? And what will those be? Hit like, hit subscribe, and then let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching.